They call me Meister Franz. They say my hands are stained beyond forgiveness. Every morning I wash them in cold water until my fingers burn. Yet I still feel the weight of every neck I have touched. In Hof, the wind carries prayer and fear in equal measure. When I walk through the market, the crowd parts without being asked. Mothers pull their children close. Men look away. But at night, when the town sleeps, I sit alone by the candle and write their names. Not to boast, to remember, because someone must remember.
We begin with a man whose life was bound to the edge of a sword, yet whose heart clung to the hope of redemption. Franz Schmidt, born in 1555, executioner. From 1573, he served the Bavarian town of Hof, and later, the great city of Nuremberg. In a world where justice was public spectacle and death a crowded stage, he held an office despised yet necessary. But unlike most who bore his title, Franz did something few expected. He kept a meticulous diary, a ledger of the condemned, a record of crime and punishment, and, between the lines, the secret conscience of a man paid to end lives. Tonight, we open the pages of that diary. We stand beside the scaffold. We listen not to screams, but to the quiet thoughts of the one holding the sword. What does it mean to kill in the name of the law? And what happens when the hangman has a soul that refuses to go numb? Let us begin.
July 1st, 1573, Hof. Today I perform my first execution. A thief, convicted of stealing cattle. He knelt without struggle. I had sharpened the sword until it sang against the stone. The crowd gathered early. Children were lifted onto shoulders to see me better, as if this were a festival, not a farewell. When it was done, the magistrate nodded with satisfaction. He said my stroke was clean. The people murmured, "Meister Franz, he will do." I walked home alone. My hands did not tremble. But when I sat to eat, the meat turned to ash in my mouth. I wrote his name in my book. If God keeps a ledger, then so must I.
Franz did not choose this life. His father, Heinrich Schmidt, had been forced into the role of executioner after being made to perform a hanging by order of a Margrave. In that moment, a family's fate was sealed. In the eyes of the law, the Schmidts were servants of justice. In the eyes of society, they were untouchable. Executioners lived on the edge, feared, avoided, yet needed. They sat apart in church. They married within their own stained circle. Children were born into a destiny they did not ask for. For Franz, the sword was inheritance. Yet from the beginning, his diary reveals something unusual. He doesn't revel in his work. He records it, precisely. Year after year, he lists names, crimes, and sentences. Thieves, murderers, arsonists, witches, so they were called. Each entry, spare, methodical. But beneath the ink, something else breathes, a quiet horror and an unexpected compassion. After his early years in Hof, Franz's skills were noticed. In 1578, he was summoned to Nuremberg, a wealthy, powerful city that needed a steady hand to enforce its laws. There his life would become a ritual of public death and private reckoning. The entries would grow longer, the weight on his conscience heavier, and the man with the sword would begin to question what it meant to be just in a world so quick to condemn. By the time Franz Schmidt settled into his role in Nuremberg, he had become a figure both dreaded and relied upon. From 1578 onward, his diary marches through the years, over 360 executions and hundreds of mutilations, floggings, and banishments. To the city council, he was a professional. To the people, he was the blade of justice. But within his diary, a different story unfolds. Beneath the orderly lists, the margins begin to fill with remarks, small human observations that show a man struggling not to lose himself.
October 9th, 1589, Nuremberg. Today I executed 3 men convicted of robbery. 2 I knew to be guilty. The third, I am not so certain. His eyes never wavered as he swore his innocence, not with the desperation of a liar, but with the calm of a man who has lost everything but the truth. The law required his death. My duty demanded it. I obeyed. The sword fell the same for him as for any other. But as I washed the steel, I saw my own reflection disturbed by the water. It was as though I too had been struck.
Franz was meticulous. He recorded not only what his victims had done, but how they went to their deaths. Courageous, penitent, defiant. Sometimes he wrote of those he believed wrongly condemned, and there the mask of the professional slipped. His entries edged toward quiet protest. But the machine of justice rolled on. In the Nuremberg of the late 16th century, crime and punishment were public theatre. To maintain order, the city believed it must be seen punishing harshly.
May 21st, 1593, Nuremberg. A woman accused of child murder was brought before me. She trembled so violently that she could not stand. In her confession, she spoke in circles, as if trying to recall a story someone else had told her. She seemed less wicked than broken. The law sees black and white. I see the gray in their eyes. It changes nothing. The sword must still rise. But I have begun to pray longer at night, not for myself, for them.
Even as he carried out the sentences, Franz did something few expected of an executioner. He practiced healing. When he was not wielding the blade, he tended to the sick and injured. He learned herbs, bandaging, treatments. In his diary, he lists not just those he killed, but the many more he treated and cured. A strange balance. By morning, an instrument of death. By evening, a bringer of relief. In both, he touched human bodies at their most vulnerable. Guilt seeped in slowly, not as a dramatic confession, but as a fatigue of the soul. A man whose hands could both harm and heal began to wonder which side of their work would define him. The turning point in Franz Schmidt's life did not come in a single dramatic moment, but in an accumulation of them. Faces, names, cries, prayers. His diary, once clean columns, became dense with ink, a forest of human stories ending at his feet. As the years passed, he rose in status, recognized as a disciplined and unusually humane executioner. He refused unnecessary cruelty. He insisted on precision. He saw himself as a guardian of order, not a butcher. But the burden grew.
April 3rd, 1604, Nuremberg. They thanked me today. The city council commended my long service. They praised my clean hand and my honorable conduct. Honorable. It is a strange word to lay at the feet of a hangman. I have done as I was commanded. I have kept my sword sharp. I have ended lives swiftly when I could, to spare them needless suffering. But at night, when the praise has faded, I see only their eyes. I wonder if God will commend me as the council does, or ask why I did not lay the sword down sooner.
In 1617, after decades of service, Franz Schmidt retired from his post as executioner. He had carried out hundreds of sentences, yet his record shows something remarkable. He had also treated, and often cured, many more as a healer. That year, the Nuremberg Council did something almost unprecedented. They formally restored his honor. They granted him the rights of a respected citizen, lifting the social stigma of his profession. He was no longer merely the executioner. He was Herr Franz Schmidt, a man allowed to walk among those who once crossed the street to avoid his shadow.
December 20th, 1617, Nuremberg. I have laid down the sword. It hangs now on the wall, a relic of another life. Today, they handed me a parchment. It bears the city's seal and declares my good name restored. I held it in my hands and felt nothing at first. Paper cannot undo the past. But then I walked through the market. For the first time, no one turned away. A woman I once treated for illness nodded and smiled. God bless you, Meister Franz, she said. Not in fear, in gratitude. Perhaps this is what I have been working toward all along. Not erasing what I have done, but balancing it.
After his retirement, Franz Schmidt devoted himself fully to the craft of healing. He became a respected medical practitioner in Nuremberg, treating patients from all walks of life. The man once barred from polite company now tended to the very citizens who would have once whispered about him. His diary, too, had shifted. It no longer only recorded deaths. It held remedies, cases of disease, and notes on those he had restored to health. A ledger that began as a record of endings became, slowly, a book of second chances.
May 7th, 1625, Nuremberg. Today, I treated a young man with a fever that nearly took him. As I cooled his brow and mixed his draught, he gripped my wrist and said, "I thought I was done for, Meister Franz." I smiled and told him, "Not today." When I came home, I opened my old diary. I read the names of those I could not save, not because I would not, but because I was not allowed. Then I thought of the faces of those I have healed since. If my life is a scale, perhaps the chains tremble now, seeking balance. I do not know how God will judge an executioner who also sought to mend what he could. I only know this: I have given my days to the service of both law and mercy. I pray that somewhere in between, my soul may find rest.
Franz Schmidt died in 1634, leaving behind a unique legacy. His diary survived. A stark, unflinching record of crime, punishment, and human frailty in early modern Germany. Historians pore over it as a window into the justice of his time, but those who read closely see more than legal procedure. They see a man walking a razor's edge between duty and conscience, a man who, in an age of brutality, tried to carry out his grim office with care, precision, and, where he could, mercy. In the margins of those pages, we glimpse not a faceless functionary, but a soul haunted, seeking redemption one life, one patient at a time. The story of Franz Schmidt is not a tale of saints and sinners, but of the uneasy space in between. He lived in a world that demanded public death to maintain order. He served that world with a steady hand, and yet he refused to let his heart turn to stone. By day, he ended lives in the name of justice. By night, he prayed for the souls he had dispatched and used his knowledge of the body to keep others alive. His diary outlived him, and in its pages, we confront a question that echoes across centuries. Can a man whose hands have taken so much find forgiveness? Through what he gives back?
Do not remember me only as the hand that held the sword. Remember that I also held the sick, the wounded, the afraid. In every life I ended, I saw a mirror of my own mortality. In every life I saved, I caught a glimpse of grace. I was Franz Schmidt. And between the gallows and the healer's bench, I spent a lifetime learning that justice without mercy is just another kind of cruelty.
This has been Diaries of the Past. If the life of Meister Franz stirred something in you, the weight of duty, the possibility of redemption, join us again as we open another forgotten page in history.